They say every downfall begins long before the public ever hears a word about it. And tonight, the storm that's been quietly building around Caitlin Clark has finally erupted. What started as a simple philosophical disagreement between a star player and her head coach has now spiraled into something far darker. Something the league tried desperately to bury until the truth forced its way out. Because just moments ago, reports broke that Caitlin Clark has been fired, yes, fired, after a behind-the-scenes confrontation with Stephanie White that insiders are calling the moment everything collapsed. And if you think this is just about basketball, then you haven't been paying attention. You remember how tense things were the last time we saw them together. The subtle digs in interviews. The way Caitlin's voice shook with frustration, even as she smiled for the cameras. The way Stephanie emphasized team philosophy, with that pointed calmness that always meant more than she said aloud. And who could forget the viral clip? The one where Caitlin, fresh off an injury, declared she was at her best with the ball in her hands. The world heard confidence. But those closest to the team knew what it really was, a challenge. Now, leaked messages, emotional phone calls, and insider whispers are flooding the internet, painting a picture of a relationship that didn't just fracture, it exploded. And tonight, we uncover the truth behind Caitlin's shocking dismissal, the betrayal that split the team apart, and the secret that pushed their partnership past the point of no return. The news didn't hit like a headline. It hit like a betrayal. Like a whispered confession escaping into a crowded room. One moment, the league was silent, pretending everything was fine, pretending the tension between Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White was just competitive passion. And the next moment, it was everywhere. Caitlin Clark fired. Not benched. Not suspended. Fired. The word no one ever imagined would be tied to a rising superstar with a fanbase that treated her like the heartbeat of women's basketball. But the moment the news dropped, the internet began to tremble with a kind of electric panic, because everyone knew this wasn't sudden. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment decision. No, this was the climax of something that had been building quietly, painfully, behind closed doors for months. Something that insiders had warned about, but the public refused to believe. And the first leak came from someone shockingly close to the team. A staffer who, until tonight, had stayed loyal. Their message spread like wildfire. It's not about performance. It's about control. And Caitlin stopped letting herself be controlled. Those words alone pulled millions of fans into the chaos. Because it wasn't just basketball anymore. It wasn't just strategy. It wasn't just ego. It was something deeper, something that felt almost familial in its dysfunction. A mother-daughter tension, a sister-sister rivalry, a generational conflict playing out in front of the world under the disguise of sports. People started revisiting old clips with new eyes. Suddenly, the strained smiles between Caitlin and Stephanie weren't competitive respect, they were masks. The interviews where Stephanie praised the team without mentioning Caitlin. Not oversight, intent. And Caitlin's quiet, tense posture on the sidelines during those moments wasn't humility, it was resignation. But the turning point, the moment fans realized something far more sinister had been happening, came from a leaked audio clip. It was recorded after a game earlier in the season, during what should have been a routine locker room meeting. Stephanie's voice was calm, but sharp, like someone trying to contain a growing fire. "You need to play within the system," she said. "This team cannot work if you refuse to adjust." Caitlin's reply was soft, tired, and heartbreakingly human. "I'm trying. But you won't let me be who I am." There was a long silence. A silence that felt like everything in the room had stopped breathing. Then Stephanie responded, "Who you are isn't the problem. Who you think you have to be is." That clip spread across Twitter like gasoline hitting flame. Fans dissected it, debated it, weaponized it. But insiders insisted the audio left out the most important part: the emotional eruption that happened after the recorder stopped. And sure enough, another leak surfaced hours later, this time from a player who claimed to have been standing right there. "She walked out," the player said. Caitlyn. She just walked out. No one had ever seen her break like that. But the real blow came from Caitlyn's family, yes, her family. Her mother posted a cryptic message on Facebook, quickly deleted, but not before fans screenshotted it. They pushed her until she snapped. They wanted to break her spirit, not build her future. Suddenly, what looked like a basketball conflict felt deeply personal, like a wound bleeding out in public. Meanwhile, Stephanie White's camp scrambled to control the narrative. An unnamed associate claimed Caitlyn's emotions became too unpredictable, and that the coaching staff felt unsafe confronting her. But fans weren't buying it. Not when Caitlyn's reputation had always been one of focus, grit, and relentless drive. And then, everything changed. Late that night, Caitlyn's private messages allegedly leaked. Messages between her and a close teammate. In them, Caitlyn confided, "I feel like she hates me. Every time I try to grow, she pulls the ground out from under me. I'm tired of pretending everything's fine for the cameras. I can't keep being the villain in her story." The final message was the one that stopped people cold. "I think she wants me gone." It was time-stamped 2 days before she was fired. Fans erupted, outraged, devastated, heartbroken. How long had Caitlyn been hiding her pain behind her competitive fire? How many times had she swallowed her pride to keep the peace? How many times had she forced herself to smile for interviews, knowing full well the person standing beside her didn't believe in her? But nothing prepared anyone for what came next: a leaked internal memo from the organization itself. We must consider long-term implications of tension between coaching staff and star player. Though Clark is central to branding and revenue, White's leadership must remain the foundation. Central to branding. Revenue. It wasn't just a basketball decision. It was a business decision. And just like that, fans felt sick. Because they weren't just watching a star being held accountable. They were watching a young woman being sacrificed for politics, ego, and financial image management. Caitlyn's father reportedly confronted team officials privately, and someone inside leaked his words. "She gave everything. Everything. And you repaid her with this." By the time the sun rose the next morning, the entire league was in crisis mode. Celebrities chimed in. Former players demanded transparency. Supporters flooded Caitlyn's social media with messages of love. Meanwhile, the organization released a cold, vague statement: "We wish her the best in her future endeavors." No explanation. No acknowledgement of fans. No gratitude. Just a dismissal. But the most devastating moment came when a new video surfaced: Caitlyn, alone in her car, crying quietly. Eyes red. Voice breaking. "I tried," she whispered. "I really tried." The clip ended abruptly, but its emotional punch was enough to shatter millions of hearts. And as fans began stitching together every leaked message, every tense interview, every subtle dig from Stephanie White, a horrifying realization began to form: this wasn't about one disagreement. This wasn't about one quote. This wasn't about philosophy or strategy. This was about power. And someone had finally lost control of the narrative. But the biggest twist was still coming, one that would flip everything upside down. Because within hours of her firing, an insider delivered the leak of all leaks. Caitlyn wasn't the only one Stephanie clashed with. This has been happening for years. And if that is true, then Caitlyn Clark wasn't just fired. She was targeted. If part 1 revealed the cracks, part 2 revealed the rot. Because as soon as that the post was deleted within minutes, but by then screenshots had spread everywhere. Commentators speculated wildly. Fans whispered in group chats. Even people who had never watched a WNBA game were now pulling up interviews, trying to decode facial expressions like detectives analyzing a crime scene. And then, as if the universe decided secrecy had gone on long enough, another leak surfaced, a long voicemail left by a former role player on the team. Her voice was raw, stripped of any PR polish. Everyone thinks Stephanie is calm, controlled, the adult in the room. But they don't see what happens when the cameras turn off. She pushes people. Hard. Sometimes too hard. And if you push back, Lord help you. The voicemail spread everywhere within hours. By morning, it had become the centerpiece of every sports talk show, every gossip channel, every fan thread. But the part that shook people the most came near the end. Caitlyn wasn't difficult. She was difficult for Stephanie. There's a difference. That distinction became the rallying cry of fans who had been waiting, silently, anxiously, for someone inside the organization to finally say what they feared was true. But while the world was fixated on whistleblowers and leaked voicemails, another betrayal was brewing, one from someone no one ever expected. A teammate Caitlyn had trusted. Screenshots leaked of a private group chat, messages allegedly written during the height of Caitlyn and Stephanie's tension. And buried deep in that thread was one shocking line from a veteran player. If she keeps challenging White publicly, she's going to get herself blacklisted. The word blacklisted set off an emotional earthquake. Was this punishment? A warning? A threat from within? But the message that came directly after was even worse. They already talked about phasing her out if she doesn't fall in line. I thought they were joking. Now I'm not so sure. Fans erupted, furious, heartbroken, betrayed. It wasn't just that Caitlyn was fired. It was that people had been planning for her downfall long before the public ever sensed a divide. But the most emotionally devastating moment came not from a leak, but from Caitlyn herself. Late that night, she went live on Instagram for exactly 58 seconds. Her face was blotchy, her eyes swollen. She didn't try to look composed. She whispered, "I wish people knew how hard I tried." She swallowed, struggling not to cry. "I wish people understood how much I wanted this to work. I never wanted drama. I never wanted a fight. I just wanted to play the game I love," and then she broke. Tears. Silence. A quiet, "I'm sorry," no one understood, but everyone felt. The live ended abruptly, leaving millions of fans with a sense of loss so heavy it felt personal. People cried watching it. People felt protective. They felt angry. They felt like they were watching a daughter, sister, niece, someone they loved, being pushed out by a system that didn't know how to handle her greatness. And then the next leak dropped like a bomb. A private phone call, recorded without Caitlyn's knowledge, between two high-ranking team officials discussing her future. Their voices were muffled but unmistakable. "She's too big. Too fast. We can't control her narrative. She's overshadowing the staff. Stephanie says she's uncoachable. Fans will turn on us if we don't act soon." Then the line that made everyone gasp: "If White walks, we lose the whole foundation. If Clark walks, we lose noise." Noise. Noise? That's what they thought of her. The clip went viral within minutes, prompting outrage unlike anything the league had seen. Fans flooded the team's social media accounts. Sponsors quietly began monitoring the backlash. A trending hashtag demanded justice. Meanwhile, inside the Clark household, emotions reached a breaking point. A relative, an aunt known for speaking her mind, posted a furious Facebook rant. They broke her. They treated her like a problem instead of a blessing. If you knew what we know, if you saw what she endured, you'd understand why she walked away instead of being thrown out. She deleted the post after the family scrambled, but not before it was screenshot thousands of times. That rant ignited speculation that there were deeper layers, conversations, promises, betrayals, that the public still hadn't heard. Stephanie White, for her part, finally released a vague statement: "We wish Caitlin well and believe in our team's direction moving forward." The coldness of it, the dismissiveness, was like a slap in the face to fans who had watched Caitlin pour every ounce of herself into the team. Even neutral fans felt sick reading it. But the final twist of Part 2 came from a source no one expected. A reporter known for digging up stories no one once uncovered released a cryptic post that shook the internet to its knees. "What if I told you Caitlin's firing wasn't just emotional, but contractual? What if someone inside the organization had been preparing for this moment for months?" Within minutes, a second post followed. "And what if I told you I have the receipts?" The internet exploded. Fans begged for details. Players posted emojis hinting they knew more. Celebrities jumped into the conversation. Even former coaches from Caitlin's past posted confusingly supportive messages. Something bigger was coming. Something deeper. Something that would explain not just what happened, but why. Because according to one final anonymous message from inside the organization, Stephanie wasn't scared of Caitlin's skill. She was scared of what Caitlin knew. And if that was true, then this wasn't just a firing. It was a cover-up. By the time morning broke, the world wasn't just watching a firing, they were witnessing the unraveling of an entire organization. The rumors, the leaks, the whispered confessions, it all felt too big, too intertwined, too rehearsed to be coincidence. And that's when the reporter dropped the first receipt, the screenshot of a contract amendment dated 4 months before Caitlin's firing. The amendment had one redlined clause, circled in red by whoever leaked it: termination permissible in event of sustained conflict with coaching philosophy. Fans stared at it in disbelief. Why had this clause been added after Caitlin joined? Why had no other star player been subjected to such language? Why was only one signature missing from the bottom, Caitlin's? The reporter added a caption: "She never signed this." The internet froze. If she never signed it, why was it being used against her? But there was more. The reporter posted a second image, an internal email chain between executives. One line stood out like an ink stain: "If Caitlin continues to deviate from Stephanie's direction, we must move quickly to protect coaching authority." Protect coaching authority. Not the team. Not the culture. Authority. Suddenly the picture became clearer, uglier, and far more human. This wasn't just a philosophical divide. It wasn't just tension between a star and a coach. It wasn't just ego or stubbornness. It was fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of losing power. Fear of Caitlin's influence, her spotlight, her voice. And then a third leak emerged, this time, a private recorded Zoom call among front office members. One executive said calmly, "She's bigger than the team. Bigger than the league. If we don't rein her in, she'll dictate everything." Another replied, sounding almost panicked, "Stephanie already feels undermined. If we don't take action, we lose her. We can replace Clark. We can't replace White. Replace Clark. Replace the most influential player in modern women's basketball, as if she were nothing more than an optional accessory." That clip didn't just go viral, it detonated. Fans cried, raged, screamed into the comment sections. The betrayal felt personal now, like watching a daughter or granddaughter be thrown away to preserve someone else's pride. But then, as fans reeled, someone else came forward. Stephanie White responded hours later, not with compassion, not with clarity, but with a cold, corporate statement that felt like a knife twisting deeper. We made the decision we believed was best for the team. That was it. No gratitude. No acknowledgement of Caitlyn's impact. No empathy. Just a sterile dismissal of everything Caitlyn had poured into the team. But Stephanie had forgotten one thing. Secrets don't stay buried in a family this dysfunctional. Because just as the backlash reached its highest intensity, a final leak appeared, one so devastating, so incendiary, it changed everything. A teammate anonymously sent a folder titled Clark, Coaching Notes. Inside were screenshots of private evaluations Stephanie had written about Caitlyn. Some were constructive. Others were shockingly cruel. One note read, "She resists direction even when it benefits the team. Wants spotlight more than structure." Another, "If she continues challenging authority, her role should be re-evaluated." But the one that broke the internet, the one that millions screenshot and shared and cried over, said, "She may be the centerpiece of our offense, but she is not the centerpiece of my program." Fans gasped. Because that meant everything Stephanie had said publicly, calling Caitlyn the centerpiece, had been a lie. A calculated, manipulative lie. A performance. A facade to silence criticism while she maneuvered behind the scenes. And suddenly, every old clip of Stephanie praising Caitlyn felt like poison, every smile felt staged, every kind word felt rehearsed. Meanwhile, Caitlyn went silent again. Her teammates posted heart emojis. Former coaches sent messages of love. Celebrities rallied behind her. The league issued a panicked statement insisting they were reviewing the matter. But the final twist of Part 3 didn't come from the league, or the team, or Stephanie. It came from Caitlyn's older sister. Late that night, she posted a message on her private account, one that was screenshot within seconds. Caitlyn tried to tell them the truth. Instead of listening, they punished her for it. Then the line that turned the entire story upside down. She knew something about the organization she wasn't supposed to know. The account went private immediately. The post vanished. But the internet had already seized it. Fans speculated wildly. Analysts panicked. Reporters scrambled for sources. Because now, the firing wasn't just emotional. It wasn't just political. It wasn't just personal. It was protective. Of what? Of who? No one knew yet. But one insider hinted ominously, they fired her to stop her from talking. And if that's true, then this story isn't over. It's just beginning. Before you click away, take a moment and breathe. Because if you felt your chest tighten, if you felt your pulse race, if you kept whispering no, no, as each new leak surfaced, that's not an accident. That's your intuition picking up on the truth. What happened to Caitlyn Clark is not normal. It is not simple. And it is absolutely not the story the league wants you to hear. And after tonight, after everything we uncovered, one thing is painfully clear. This isn't just a firing. This is a cover-up wrapped in politics, power, fear, and the kind of whispered secrets that can only stay buried for so long. Caitlyn didn't just lose her position. She stepped on something. She discovered something. Something they were willing to sacrifice a superstar to keep hidden. And if you think this episode was shocking, the next one is going to rip the roof off the entire franchise. There are documents, phone calls, and